You don't have to burden your kids with this. You can just put this all together. That's where you're actually not burdening them, because if you do not do any of this prep work, then you are going to be a burden. Then it's going to be really challenging. You're actually doing your kids a huge favor by preparing. And again, you don't have to bring them into the conversation, but by putting it all together, that's a real gift.
Hello, and welcome to Not Born Yesterday, a podcast dedicated to older adults and the challenges and joys of aging. I'm Miriam Goodman. Not Born Yesterday examines the problems and solutions of growing older today. We bring you the wisdom and voices of experts in the field of aging and offer tips on how to feel your best, use your lifetime skills and experience, and make the coming months and years as fulfilling as possible.
I'm Lynn Winter Gross. Not Born Yesterday is brought to you by Next Village San Francisco, a local nonprofit providing older adults with support to help age in place.
Today on Not Born Yesterday, we're talking about something we hear too often from aging parents, or even say ourselves: I don't want to be a burden. Those words carry a lot of hidden meaning for both the speaker and the recipient, are deeply associated with feelings of independence and its loss, but most importantly, these words often shut down the chance for necessary conversations. Our guest today will help us understand where this comment comes from and how we can deal with loved ones who deny needing help.
Christina Irving is the Client Services Director with the Family Caregiver Alliance in San Francisco. She's worked with families who are navigating the changes that come with aging, like caregiving and care receiving. Betsy Conlon is a therapist in private practice in California. Christina and Betsy, welcome to Not Born Yesterday.
Thank you.
Christina, this phrase of "I don't want to be a burden on my family" must come up frequently with your clients. What are the emotions that are underneath that statement?
Often it is people who really don't want to kind of burden or feel like they're asking for too much from other family members. A lot of it comes rooted in this need for independence and this feeling that I should be able to take care of myself. I've raised my children. I want them to be out in the world, doing their own thing, their own career and their own families, and not wanting to take away from that. That fear, I think, sometimes of acknowledging that you need help and asking for help can really create a lot of feelings of stigma, that there's something wrong with me and I'm not as independent as I think I should be.
Betsy, do you have something you want to add?
Yeah, I think it also is a reminder that of changes that are happening. We see ourselves as we age on the outside, not the inside, and so it can be this stark reminder of, wow, I'm not able to do as much as I used to be able to do. And there's that existential piece, right? Of what does this mean? How is this going to unfold as I continue to age?
So, for the adult child who hears this, I assume the first thing to understand is it's not about you. It's more about the parents' fear of losing independence that makes them say this. So, we can't say, oh, don't be silly, you're not a burden. But how should we respond with empathy and show that we really do want to help?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it hurts to start with "you're not a burden." I don't think we want to, minimize that feeling, because obviously somebody's experiencing that emotion and that thought in the moment. But I think for adult children, being able to respond and say, I love you, I care about you, I want to be here, I want to help, I want to support you as best as I can. And they can acknowledge in, a deeper conversation that maybe there are going to be limits to things that they can do. But if we can start talking about it together now, start planning together, then we're in a better position to figure out, what am I capable of helping with? Where might I have to set some limits? And we need to look at other options or external help. But it's starting that conversation early. So if the parents are bringing it up, that's actually a great kind of entry point to at least begin a conversation about what future care needs might look like.
What's the conversation?
It is that conversation of, that most people at some point, whether from age, disability, health condition will need some level of help and assistance. And let's plan for it now. We may not know exactly what it's going to look like, but let's talk about, do we have legal documents in place? What are the financial resources? How much can an adult child contribute? What are other community resources that might be available? But to really be able to start talking about what that might look like depending on how much help you need.
I was just going to add that I think it also is very nuanced because it depends on the relationship that the parents and their children have, right? That for some it actually might be a burden, and they may not want to be really involved, right? So it can be uh, sometimes tricky, and sometimes parents don't want to um, reveal their finances or really kind of open up about their relationship with their kids. So that may be then talking with some external people like a fiduciary or a lawyer or to be able to get some of their finances and their plan in place.
Well, we were talking more about the fact that there might be some need for taking you to the doctor or finding out what's really behind that medicine you're taking and things like that. And I was talking to a friend who said, I'm afraid to tell my adult child that I have a certain thing wrong with me because I think she'll be hovering and calling, and I don't want that. So, when push comes to shove and it's really serious, she'll say, "Well, why didn't you tell me sooner?" But, there's that trade-off back and forth. What do you do about it?
Think that clear communication is often really hard because you're bringing up a new illness or a new diagnosis, but it's really helpful in being able to let both sides kind of create their boundaries about what they're okay with. So I want to share with you and I don't need help. And it's not something I want to talk about every time we talk. So when I have updates, when I have new information, I will let you know. But I also don't want this to be, the defining part of our relationship and our conversations.
So, Betsy, when somebody says no to help, it actually prevents planning for that time when it really will be needed. So, again, how do you reassure the parent that caregiving is loving and it's not a burden and it doesn't mean all or nothing?
Right. Well, I mean, it's really more getting underneath what is the no about? Is it because they're fiercely independent? Is it because they don't trust their children? Um, you know, is it a blended family where there's multiple players in place? And maybe it's also if you're the adult children saying, are you speaking with somebody about this? Do you have a plan? You may not want to involve me, but it would be if you don't have a plan, it's gonna get messy.
Do you find that adults frequently go to their female adult children if they have them, or the daughter-in-law if they just have a son?
I think it really depends on the relationship you have with your kids, you know.
I think the gender roles and those norms still do exist in a lot of families where it does tend to lean often on the adult daughter, but it's also cultural. In some families, it's going to be the oldest child or it will be the son who is somebody who will have a little bit more kind of authority within the family. So there's different cultural differences, different family differences. And then, as we see family size decrease, it's more likely that you're going to have one child who might step in as opposed to multiple. And so then it's that child by default, assuming that you do want to involve them at all.
If you read novels of 100 years ago, there's always the spinster daughter who has to give her life over to taking care of the parents. And we hope that doesn't happen anymore. But yes, it is a cultural and a gender related thing, I'm sure.
Before we leave the cultural thing, we've talked on other episodes about different cultures around the world where it's just assumed that the children would take care of the older parents. That's not happening so much as the children may move to the United States or out of their farms into the cities, but it was an easier road to hold because the adults would just assume that their children would take care of them, and they did.
And in some cultures, those multi-generational households are a lot more common where you have three generations at least in one home. So it is more likely that, the grandparents are helping take care of grandkids when they're younger. And then as the grandparents start to need more help, people are stepping in to provide care. So in some families, that is just going to be a little bit more of the norm than for others. But it's just those different family structures. And then how comfortable are you about talking about these types of issues, about illness, about end of life, about care needs?
We see that as a problem a lot when we're talking to people, but I'm wondering, we talked a little bit about a plan. Is it a good idea for the adult child to say, okay, let's start a little basis of the plan? Like, I don't want to know your financial issues, but maybe I can help you write your checks each month or pay your bills. Or what do you suggest is the best way to get started, even if it's just the beginning?
I mean, I think one of the really bare bones things is making sure that they have durable powers of attorney for healthcare and finance.
Those legal documents, you need those in place before you actually need to use them. So starting with, do you have those? And at least where are my important papers? So maybe I don't want to give you all of my bank statements and everything yet, but do you know where to find those things if you need to? And then I think a conversation around, even just how do you envision what your life would look like, what care might look like if you do start to need more help. They might have an idea in mind of I'd want to be in assisted living, or I'd want to stay at home with in-home help, or I expect you as my child to jump in and provide care. But to start that conversation of what would that look like for you? And then I think it gives both sides kind of a chance to ask questions and discuss and figure out what is realistic.
And with the finances, it's also good. A durable power of attorney for finance is great. And most banks and financial institutions require a lot more than just that. So even if they don't want to share with their kids, the process, finding out from their financial institutions what documents and what things are going to be needed if they aren't able to, if they don't have capacity, if they're not able to make those decisions. And that way, having it in kind of an information sheet that can document out, like, here are my passcodes, here's what my financial institutions will require, here's where my important paperwork is. And you don't have to give that to your kids. But if you have it all kind of documented out, then it's going to make things much easier if something kind of sudden happens and you don't have capacity. And you don't have to burden your kids with this. You can just put this all together, right? And so, and that's where you're actually not burdening them, because if you do not do any of this prep work, then you are going to be a burden. Then it's going to be really challenging. If you do not have these durable powers of attorney in place, getting somebody conserved is expensive, it's lengthy, there's a lot of angst that goes on with that. So you're actually doing your kids a huge favor by preparing. And again, you don't have to bring them into the conversation, but by putting it all together, that's a real gift.
So it seems like what you might want to do is turn their resistance into a plan, whether they know about it or not. But what about doctors? Should we ask our parents, give us the name of your doctors? Who are you seeing? What medicines are you taking? Is that a good way to start?
I think it's similar to the financial piece, is to have that information documented somewhere where your kids would know where to find it if needed. So do you have a current and updated medication list somewhere, and information on who your doctors are, allergies, past, important medical history, surgeries, or any other, really kind of urgent issues? And do you have that in one place that if somebody needed to step in and have conversations with your doctors, that they wouldn't be starting from zero? They'd have some of that information ready. And if you're somebody who says, I really don't want my kids to be making those decisions for me, well, then that's actually even more of a reason to do this pre-planning, because maybe you do need to look at care managers and having somebody step in, a fiduciary case manager who can take on those power of attorney roles for you. But if you don't prepare for that ahead of time, then your only option is going to be, as Betsy said, is going that conservatorship route. And they're going to look to the adult children in the family first. But now they're going to be trying to start scrambling to try and figure out this information in the first place.
How do you know when it's the appropriate time to bring in a third party, like a social worker or a therapist, to deal with these tricky issues?
I mean, it could be if you're dealing with a diagnosis or just those changes in that sense of independence, that is where therapy might be really helpful, even short term, just to have somebody to talk to and develop coping strategies around just those changes in life stages and transitions that you're dealing with. And then, for social workers, if there's one connected to somebody's medical provider, that can be really helpful because they may be able to assist in navigating through resources. And then if there is that conflict, as Betsy said, then having that third party facilitator can be really useful in facilitating those conversations. And it doesn't even have to be, intense conflict, but just, I don't know how to bring this up and talk about it and how to make sure that they don't become overly involved. Like, how do I set those boundaries? Like having then a third party person help with those conversations might be useful.
And Christina, to your point that, a lot of times it's not about, you and your children. It's about you maybe having been given a diagnosis or really struggling with what's going on and wanting to kind of figure out this next transition, this next life path that may be changed and isn't the one that you were expecting. And so that can involve grief. It's kind of an existential experience of understanding your life and what you want and what you value and quality of life.
What about when the parent might be in a hospital? How involved should the adult child be? I've had several friends who've had parents who lived across the country, and they said, "Oh, I went to visit. My mother was taking 400 pills. I took her off everything, and she's great, and she's much better than she was before." And it's like we don't think that we don't trust the doctor. So, what is the relationship that adult children should maintain with the doctors?
This is where having those conversations early is helpful because when you have to get engaged with a parent's healthcare providers after hospitalization, it is that much harder to try and figure out, okay, what was their baseline before? What were they on? What were the symptoms? What are the changes that we can expect upon discharge in terms of their functionality and being able to live independently or deal with new symptoms that are coming up? So I think, hospitals are often going to expect and want to connect with adult children or other next of kin and family members. But if they're doing that without any background or information, it's really hard to step in and be helpful in a way that they want to, in a way that the healthcare providers might be expecting them to. So I think it speaks to the need to, as much as somebody is comfortable and able to do it, at least provide some of that background information to their children before we have a crisis.
So, do either of you have any takeaways our listeners can use when dealing with issues of need, whether it's welcome or not?
I'd say it's starting early and recognizing that we are all likely to need some level of help at some point during our life. And so the best thing we can do for our loved ones and the people in our life, whether it's adult children, it might be, close friends who are going to step in that we're worrying about burdening. It could be a niece or a nephew, whoever that might be that could step into our life. The best gift we can give to them is to have done some planning ahead of time, having our legal documents in place, having that information kind of organized, ready to go so that somebody is able to step in. It benefits us and it's much less stressful for them.
And also, it can be bi-directional. So it doesn't have to be about, oh, my kids are taking care of me. It's also have the conversation, have your children put together these documents, right? Like it doesn't, these documents are not really age specific because people can be in an accident when they're younger too. So that way it kind of evens out the power dynamic that might feel that's there. Like, let's do this as a family. Like, how do we want to support each other?
Thank you both for sharing your knowledge and experience with us today. Before we go, we want to talk to our listeners. Remember, this is not a one-time conversation. The greatest gift you can give your parent is to reassure them that you want to be there for them, and for parents to understand that even busy adult children care about them.
So thanks to our guest, Christina Irving of the Family Caregiver Alliance, and to Betsy Conlon, a therapist. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Today on News You Can Use, we're talking about a way to combat loneliness. Reach out and make new friends. Earlier in our lives, friendships were easily formed. We hung out with people at work or met people by participating together in community activities. But once we retired and may be alone, it became harder to make meaningful social connections.
Friendships are so important as we age for many reasons. Friendships keep us emotionally healthy. Our friends provide a sense of belonging, comfort, and purpose. Being able to share laughter, memories, and everyday stories help lift our moods and can ease our anxiety.
Friendship keeps our minds sharp. As we have conversations with our friends, share hobbies, and enjoy new experiences, our minds stay active. Whether it's discussing current events, playing mahjong or bridge, or learning a new skill together, these interactions can stimulate our memories and creativity.
And friendships support our physical health. Research has shown that people with strong social connections have lower blood pressure, stronger immune systems, and even longer lifespans.
So how do we start making new friends? You can begin by finding out if your area has a chapter of the National Village Movement. This is a coalition of more than 270 grassroots community organizations that help older adults age in place by providing a variety of services and social activities. Friendships are created through everything from daily walks to book groups and a supportive and engaged community. There are also many other neighborhood programs like Neighbor to Neighbor. This group launched a friendship program called the Six Neighbors Campaign.
The organizers followed research that showed that knowing at least 6 neighbors improve health and well-being. Neighborly connection helps people feel less alone and more supported. Knowing these people around you may make you feel safer and more connected. In everyday interactions or during an emergency, neighbors can be a lifeline. And as we've often discussed, cross-generational friendships keep us active and engaged.
If you like active physical involvement, try a new sport like tennis, pickleball, or hiking. It may feel uncomfortable at first, but it's a great way to meet new people with similar interests. You never know who you'll meet, and nothing beats the joy of a new friend.
And that's our podcast for today. Our thanks to our guests, Christina Irving and Betsy Conlon. You can learn more about Next Village San Francisco at their website, nextvillagesf.org, or by calling 415-888-2868. Our theme music is from Hook Sounds, and Jason Dahlstedt is our engineer. And thank you for listening. We'd love to hear what you would like us to discover and discuss. Please contact us at notbornyesterdaypodcast.org. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. All of these are free and let us know our audience better. Be well, stay strong, and remember, you weren't born yesterday. I'm Lynn Winter Gross.
And I'm Miriam Goodman.